Hi there, everybody. My name is Kate, and welcome to my channel, Trinergy Awakens Naturally. So, I want to talk about that savage cutoff game and how we get accused of being really mean and all kinds of stuff whenever we decide that somebody has crossed over the line of, all right, I've just had enough. One of the things that happens in communication with me, anyway, and it is common with starseeds, light workers, or empaths, people who identify as high sensitive or doing God's work, whatever label you give yourselves, many times we will gracefully allow someone to stunt, front, flex, do whatever their dumb shit is in our direction, let them get a little something in, have a passive aggressive comment, set up shop as our advisor, our mentor, our guide, our something, because we're graceful people, we're humble people generally, and we know that it's immature to get into a fight with someone who's already, flexing. Just let them flex for a minute and keep it moving. However, sometimes it can come as quite a shock to those individuals when you finally say, do you know how much I don't want to hear that anymore? I can't. You've gone over the line now. And that's a very delicate area. I was listening to someone earlier today that, for myself, I'm very much a Sigma female. I'm pretty blunt to the point because there were many years when I wasn't, that I was just allowing people to say and do things and thinking that it was just more graceful and humble of me, more Jesus Christ like, to just allow people to believe whatever they believed and that they would just go on about their business, even if it was personal relationships, that they would just go on about their business. They can have their flex moment if they're that tiny, if they're that, 144, in need of a moment to, stretch out their ego a little bit and feel highly important, sure, why not? Not because I enjoyed it so much, but because I wasn't willing to get into every single battle. I battled the points that I thought were important, and they were more important sooner than that, unfortunately, in those relationships where when we are taking on that Jesus Christ principle or the humble principle or the, yeah, that's just a flex, sometimes we need to really put our foot down a little bit stronger, a little bit sooner, because it does come as a shock to the other side when we say, excuse me, what are you saying? Because we've been in our mind already giving them grace points or allowance for behavior that was already over the line, passive aggressive stuff, or even aggressive stuff that, okay, that was just a bad day. And we may identify that this person is full on straight gaslighting me. However, I'm going to, put in some seeds of understanding here and, put in some. However, I'm going to give them grace because that's the humble step. That's the middle way. And sometimes the middle way needs to swing a little bit more over to a more conservative way of put my foot down, that it's going to bring that balance back by swinging to counterbalance how far you went over the line, not how far I'm going to accommodate you coming into my space. I'm going to need to shove you a little bit further out for it to come back to that middle way. And unfortunately, that's a very delicate process, and it depends on the nature of the relationship we have, who it's with, the degree that we're into it with them, any kind of karmic baggage we may have with them. However, human is human, humaning and peopling and having to communicate at some level. We do 333 just need to understand that it's communicating, and it really doesn't matter what the relationship is, how intense it is, whatever. It's when we finally know inside that this has disrespected me and I need to articulate this, that you've crossed a boundary I'm not comfortable with, and developing those more graceful nuances of skill with what the situation is really great. However, I would have much rather have started getting out of the gate much sooner in my life with people and learning, that's across my boundary and I'm not comfortable with that. Or no, I'm not comfortable with the way that you're explaining that behavior to me, or, okay, fine, you were having a bad day. It was that situation. That's okay. However, if we keep having this pattern 414 repeating itself, then we have a pattern that's easily identified. And me not being able to put my foot down, soft entry on that, then it's going to be a hard entry eventually. Or we just don't realize sometimes that 3 or 4 or 5 decades have gone by where we've been soft opening with people instead of, here's my grand opening of no, NFW, I'm not doing NFW, NFW, no effing way. Pardon me. God, I'm going to get there eventually. No effing way am I doing this anymore, because it's beyond the pale of what I can absolutely tolerate in my world. That if you can't see where this is, I can see. That is my empathic capability. That is my intuitive skill. That's my clairvoyance. That's my light worker, my star seed. However you bag that up and call that at your house, that to me, that's the gift of being one of the chosen people, or one of the people that has the ability to help some of the others that don't see, is that I do see this pattern and I don't appreciate this pattern. And by continuing to allow someone to enact that pattern is a no-no. That's where we get into trouble. By putting a soft boundary down, sometimes people will get it, if we don't return a phone call right away, or if we just say something that's maybe not hostile and aggressive to spark them into, their defensive point. It's really useless. So if we have the ability to reach them and say something that doesn't spark their defenses, or it sparks, a very depreciated intensity of their defense mechanism, then we might be able to make headway. However, if we're dealing with people that you're giving them the soft boundary, you're giving them the soft opening, and they're not catching it, rather than get lulled into believing that, well, that's a Christ-like thing to do, to forgive, 555, change, quite alive. It is very Christ-like. However, Christ didn't have any problem with going up into the temple and saying, nope, you are absolutely wrong. This is not okay. Get out of here with that trash. Get out of here and stop doing it that way. You may not. You are in sacred territory, and that is not how you're going to do this. He expressed a very vital need for the boundary to be understood, that whatever you do in your hood is not good right here in this hood. That's not how we do that here. Get out of here with that mess. And he wasn't unclear about it. Now, we don't know, however, we could probably assume, based on Jesus Christ, that he wasn't going to hold a grudge with those people, and that if those people were able to see their own behavior afterwards and did any self-reflection, got all Carl Jung with themselves, if they did that self-reflection or introspection and came back and said, man, I'm really sorry that I disrespected the temple like that, Jesus, bro, I'm really sorry. Jesus had no reason that he was going to hold a grudge or be ugly, unless he saw them doing that in the temple again. If he continued to see the pattern, he would continue to deal with the pattern every single time it showed up, even if it was a bunch of different hoodlums coming up into the temple, and those people that he would see outside of the temple, if he saw them and they said, I'm really sorry, then why would he hold a grudge? Why would he be that immature? He was already mature enough to understand the situation and emotionally intelligent enough to stop it in its tracks and say, absolutely not. Now, in our lives, we don't often think of our temple, our body, as our temple, or our etheric space, our energy, our head, our mind, our finances, whatever. That is all our temple. And if somebody's up in there gaslighting or trying to, urinate on the steps, or, trying to pat us on the head and act like we're, stupid and we need their help to, obviously you don't understand what's going on here. Things that are just passive aggressive, things that are very hard to, see sometimes because they wiggle weird in that undercurrent. That passive aggressive stuff is very difficult to put the finger on, and that's why those soft boundaries, we don't even know that we need to have a hard boundary sometimes, because somebody's wiggled in and then all of a sudden they're screaming at us, or they're taking quick action against us, or they're saying something that is smiling and yet it's stabbing us right in the heart, and then we're wondering, why do I feel so terrible? And they're all up in our temple parading around, prostituting, pimping, selling doves, etc., and we're trying to figure out what's going on, and they're like, it's you, it's because you won't allow us to be our version of sacred in your temple. No, go do your sacred, what you consider, whatever you're doing outside my energy, outside of my life, outside of my finances, my emotions, my family, my job, my whatever it is. You can be whatever you call all that, sacred or not. It's not for me to judge. It's only for me to judge that this is my temple, and that is not how I do my life. If I feel confusion, if I feel like somebody's, this feels very strange to me, and I can't figure that out immediately, either with the person or without the person, that's a connection problem somewhere, and it's in the communication. Now, it could be me just being paranoid. However, when I've gotten good enough to know that something is really unseemly here, and it starts getting gray and gloopy and misunderstanding, all these things, they get very convoluted, and I start hearing a lot of you in my face when I say, I'm feeling uncomfortable with this. Well, you need to. Those are cues and clues of, this is really not about me. It's really about you. Get out of my temple. I'm not interested in this. And it doesn't necessarily mean that it's a permanent, that it's a permanent thing of get out of my temple, you're never welcome here, and to be done with you. It doesn't necessarily mean that. It does mean, though, that a person has felt okay to get comfortable and settled up enough that they're coming in, sitting down, putting their feet up and scratching their ass on your temple couch or something, got comfortable in the emotional boundaries enough to be disrespectful, and it takes that kind of engagement to get them out before they will take the hint and move it on. It may be that that's not going to ever be able to come back into something that's workable, because that person will not be able to pony up, ante up, and do the introspection. People that were in the temple, like I said, we don't know what happened in terms of those people, if Jesus was able to go back and counsel them, or that they even wanted counsel. The counsel he gave them was, get out, get the F out right now, because this is absolutely not tolerable. Whether or not those people were retrievable, that's on them. It had nothing to do with Jesus setting the standard of, I don't put up with that shit in my house. No, this is a holy place, and that's not where you're going to do unholy stuff. You got to take that out of here. There's nothing wrong with Jesus' end of the communication. There would have been lots of problems if they tried to argue with him and he was confused for half a second. And that's why it's super important to get in touch with that very balanced part of us, that Christed energy in us that knows very clearly that compassion is not about looking at someone and saying, oh, look at them, 1111. They're in here destroying a temple because they're ignorant and they don't understand. It is that to begin with, happily, and it's also, how do I keep them from destroying this temple, because they are ignorant and they don't understand, and that's a darn shame. However, they're burning up my whole place right now. You got to get out of here with that mess, and have the compassion to not beat them to death or persecute them in some way, or throw them out and then stab them in the heart, or do anything weird. Just kick them out. No matter what they're whining about, screaming about, or wailing about, it was you that transgressed. It was you that went over that boundary, 1144. It was me as Jesus saying, no, you may not come through, blowing through my door like that. You've got to get out. And I was amiss for not tending this temple well enough to understand that you'd made it up in here to do that in the first place. However, I'm here now. However long it took me, whether it was 5 decades or not, it took me 5 minutes or 5 decades. I'm here now, and you are being asked to leave this holy, sacred place, because my temple of me, my whole etheric body, my whole entire energetic package is me, and I'm responsible for that. So the more Christed energy, the more balanced, divine, masculine, feminine, whatever you call all that, the balanced shadow, the dark and light, whatever you call all of that, when we have that in balance, we definitely can tell when something becomes out of balance, and we're being pulled to those places where we have either learned this lesson and we're being given the opportunity to say, how well do you know this? Then just execute whatever you need to make that go away quickly, to demonstrate your proficiency in this skill. Or we don't know well enough, and we're going to stand there in the confusion. And that's where I know that, oh, I'm confused for a minute, then I have work to do. You got to go no matter what. For me to possibly have to go back and make an apology later, I'd rather make an apology later to someone that I have deem that I've stepped on their toes or been unkind or been mean to, than to let somebody else just continue to confuse me, waste my time, and make me start doubting my Christed energy or my Christ self or my own temple. Wait a minute, then I find that my temple looks a whole lot different on the inside, and I got shag carpeting and disco balls and all kinds of other weird shit in there that I really don't want. So rather than allow that to happen ever again in my world, I would rather, there's 8 billion people on the planet, there's a whole lot of people out here that if they're already messy and confusing, or I feel messy and confused with them, my chances are very good that I can find somebody that already isn't showing up making me feel messy and confused, or they are already messy and confused. The people are not disposable. However, people make themselves very uneasy to interact with when we are, people that are enlightened or turned on. We already understand some stuff, and giving grace to that allows that confusion to just lodge in sometimes, and it allows those people to believe that that behavior is actually okay. It's not. It's going away. And so the less that we tolerate that with kindness, however, compassion is not always looking very kind. However, it is kindness to tell someone, no effing way. No, absolutely. You got to go away with that mess. I'm not putting up with that. It does not mean that that's a cruel thing or savage. The savage cutoff game can seem like it's mean. And if I spit on someone and said, you're a bleh, and all of that. However, if I just say, no, I can't tolerate this, I got to go, then that's on their end. We don't know what Jesus, or excuse me, what the people did when they were excused from the temple, how butthurt they were or what they did with that. That's not the point of the story. The point of the story is that someone transgressed, you got to go. And if you don't already have the self reflection or the self ability as somebody who's inside another person's temple making some shit wrong, then that's kind of on that person, isn't it? Rather than for Jesus to go rescue them some more or be codependent with them and say, could you please, why can't you see why this is wrong? Why don't you understand that? That's not the point, nor the question. It doesn't matter why they did not see what was wrong about what they were doing. It was the fact that they were wrong in what they were doing, and you're going to have to go out there and stop this process, and you can go out there and figure it out. However, for as long as we're going to stand in this battle point in my temple is continuing to be desecrated and taken to a point of sacrilege that no, stop the process, stop the burn, and get out of here with it. And then maybe those people will figure out why that was wrong or what was wrong about it. And maybe Jesus would have reflection, self-reflection to say, maybe I was a little bit much. However, when we're empaths and we know, we read a scene and we know what we know and we see what we see, doesn't matter. It's our temple. And odds are out of 8 billion people on the planet, there's going to be people that won't be that questionable to have to wonder what's going on to begin with. So I hope that's been helpful to you in some way. And I hope you enjoy your day, no matter what part of the day you're in, and get within your skin because you're divine. Your Jesus Christ and your temple is absolutely fine. Whatever you call those juicy insides, balance those suckers out and make sure that you understand how to reach that place of complete balance within you so that you know when your temple starts feeling out of balance and you can start looking for, what's the offending agent? Is it me doing something to me? Is it me allowing somebody else to do something to me? Whatever it is, we have all that in us. We have all of the ability. Every bit that Jesus Christ had, we have that ability too. It's a matter of, unassing our temple sometimes to figure out how do we help that come through more cleanly and not get distracted with people who are trying to put up, 70s wallpaper in our kitchen. Thanks anyway. I'm not interested in playing in an old dynamic that just doesn't serve. So anyway, get within because your divine is absolutely beautiful. It's gorgeous and totally fine. Take care of your gorgeous selves, and I will see you again next time. Goodbye, my beautiful friends. Mwah.